My name is Dave Renfroe. You are watching Octane Addicts, only on Torqued Up TV. As far as getting started in racing, that's very simple. Had my name on the side of a race car before I could walk or talk, either one. My dad was involved in racing, literally was born into it and grew up all around it. I grew up, didn't know what it was like, be at home on a Saturday night. Saturday night's supposed to be at the racetrack. It could rain 4 or 5 nights a week. Don't rain on the weekends because we got to go racing. Grew up heavily involved in dirt track racing in Jacksonville, Florida. Was just absolutely lucky to be in that area at that time because I grew up around some of the greatest dirt track racers in the entire country ever. And I got to see them on a regular basis. Then, as is normally the case when it comes February, a young racer's attention turns to Daytona. Everybody went to Daytona, and they ran the big track. Me too. I was in the pits at Daytona at 14 years old. Yeah, I told a fib. So, sorry, NASCAR. Not really. I had the pleasure of meeting drivers, called a bunch of NASCAR officials my friends, scored NASCAR races well before the age of 17 or 18. That was the world I knew. It all revolved around racing. I was blessed with a father who didn't mind taking his son to the racetrack, and I was blessed with a mother who understood that her son wanted to go racing with his dad. Called a very good friend of mine who happened to win the Daytona 500 in 1963. I got to call him friend, and his name was Tiny Lund. And Tiny would, when he come to race Jacksonville, Tiny would stay at our house a lot. And well, when he stayed at our house, I lost my room. So I'm on the couch, Tiny's staying in my room. But Tiny went to the racetrack and walks in there, and Tiny was always trying to help out his friends. And he walks up in there and he says, "Why isn't anybody selling National Speed Sport News?" And for those of you who don't know, that was the Bible of NASCAR racing, or actually all kind of racing. We kept up with racing all over the United States with a weekly newspaper called National Speed Sport News. So at the age of 12, 13 or so, not only am I selling newspapers at Jacksonville Speedway, he got me the job. He knew the editor and owner. I'm selling the papers on the weekends at Jacksonville Speedway, but I'm also writing the articles. So that put me in the tower, which, once again, I'm in the tower with the legendary Red Wright. He was known as the Mouth of the South, and he announced races all throughout the South. He actually ended up doing some mud races, which is real coincidental, and he owned a radio station, and he was a very dear friend and is missed greatly. I would write up the heat race results, write up the starting lineup, and still sell my newspapers. And whenever everybody got hungry in the booth, I'm the one that made the run down to the concession stand to go get hot dogs, popcorn, and drinks. So that's my weekends. And on a good weekend, I'd hit Brunswick on Friday night, Jacksonville on Saturday night, and we'd do Savannah on Sunday night. That was the racing trifecta. Then I got in not only doing that, doing some go-kart racing, a little bit of sand drags, all this being around Jacksonville, and then moved to Lexington, South Carolina. And I always say that it was literally by the very grace of God that I got mixed up with or got introduced to a group of friends who you would call them rednecks, but they are the greatest people in the world. And I still call them friends today. We still stay in touch. And we were all involved in trucks. We like racing. Couldn't really afford to go racing, so we were doing the truck thing. That's where the introduction into truck racing came. We were going to mud bogs, got tied up with the Lake Murray 4-Wheel Drive Club, and I was the only one in there that was an official that didn't have a truck. So that was pretty cool. We were going a bunch of mud bogs. We said that we can do a mud bog better than that, but we're a bunch of 17, 18-year-old kids, and we didn't know any better. So Red Weed had a bunch of equipment with his son, Gene, And Todd Kaufman's grandmother had property, and so we opened up our own mud race. Had one race a year, and it was called the Mud Run for Cancer. But the reason for that, we wanted to give all the money away. We were a bunch of group of kids. What are we going to do with money? How are we going to divvy it up right? So we just said, the heck with it. We'll get it to charity. So for 4 years running, we were the number one single-day fundraiser for the American Cancer Society, which is something I'm extremely proud of, along with all my friends. It was not just me. But we put on a mud bog. Red Weed and Gene Weed dug the pit, along with a bunch of help from Lake Murray Four-Wheel Drive Club. At that time, we did something that was unheard of. We put a bounty on it. When I say we, that would be Red Weed's doing. He put $500 on it. You can go out this pit, you can get $500. Now that was the introduction to mud bogging. And no, we never paid out that $500. There was a bunch of people that tried, never paid out that $500. But all of that taught me how someone who sees something and believes in something, a bunch of kids, how that can affect someone for the rest of their life. And that, it definitely did have an impression on me. And so we opened up the first one in 1982, and no, I didn't announce it. For the second one, 1983, we got involved. I wanted to announce it, I just didn't tell anybody. So I finally got up the nerve to say, well, who's going to announce this? And Kenny Reisinger looked at me and said, you are. I said, that's fine by me. So they put me on the back of a flatbed truck, and we stayed out there in the August heat in Lexington, South Carolina, and we did it. It was very good, and that's how I got started in mud racing and announcing. This is going to be my 37th year. I don't necessarily feel 37 years old, so I'm not exactly sure how in the world it is I've been doing this 37 years, but some of the folks that were working with me at that track, Barry Schilling, certainly bunch of folks like Keith Boatwright actually ran. Kenny Reisinger was there. Now I'm using Barry Schilling's kids who are working with me in the booth. So it's a really, really good thing. And the best thing about racing in general, and especially mud racing, is the family. I've met an incredible amount of people. And whenever you meet somebody, it's not just them that are your friends. It goes over into the parents and things and the entire family, and it's grown like no one's business. And I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be all over the Southeast United States, going from various venues, seeing various forms of racing, and doing some announcing. And I'm an extremely blessed and very thankful man because of that. And I've also behind me having a very, very understanding family who understands what it's like to crawl up in the back of a truck on a Friday afternoon, headed out to who knows where to do some racing on a Friday and Saturday, and then come on back home Sunday. So I'm very thankful for that as well. Unfortunately, the Mud Run for Cancer thing only lasted 4 years, but mud racing itself was really getting cranked up pretty good. There's a lot of things that people can do. I guess fortunately for me, there wasn't a whole lot of announcers. My basis of announcing is I come at it as a fan. I'm a fan whether I'm sitting in the stands. I'm a fan if I'm in the booth. I'm a fan if I'm down on the track. And so still while doing all of this, my dad and I was trying to do a little bit of stock car racing. I still had that in my blood, and we're doing a little bit of asphalt racing. So I was enjoying that. I enjoyed very much being on the other side of the fence. So it honestly is all about racing. Always did a bunch of local mud races throughout South Carolina, a little bit in North Carolina. Racing really started getting big around South Carolina. A lot of different classes. And all along the way, you meet more and more people. Really, things started changing up a great deal. Met up with Matt Bonnet, and it worked out pretty cool because I was staying pretty close to where his shop was, and I'm a race rat, so I was naturally drawn to a shop where anything building of racing was going on, and there they were building trucks. Well, yeah, go by and check out Matt, see what's happening, who's doing what, and all this kind of stuff. Well, Matt was pretty entrepreneurial, And so he wasn't just building trucks for himself, he was building trucks for other folks. Then he got into the track operations business, and so that just kind of went from there. Come to find out, Matt was going to the racetracks that I was announcing at, but we didn't know one another. I was in Wagner, South Carolina, announcing a race for Russell Twitty's Mud Bog, and this gentleman comes up and says, has a very low country accent. Won't you come announce my mud bog? Who is this guy? And from Louisiana? No, he's from town around Charleston. And he was building a mud track in Ridgeville, South Carolina. Well, that was Buddy Driggers. And that man turned out to be one of my dearest friends. No two ways about it. And we had a blast at Ridgeville. I helped out on the promoting side, did the announcing, and I've always tried to help out on the promoting side because I can understand the promoter side, the fan side, the driver side. I try to help any driver I can. If they're going to get a sponsor, if there's any way I can help them, sure, I'll do whatever I can to help them out. I was running with, also doing announcing for Russell Twitty. Matt Bonnet came on board with Thunder Valley. Did a lot of that. That was pretty good. Mid-State Mud Bog was a blast, and that turned right back to where Barry Schillings comes involved. His son was actually the one that started that up with help from Greg, and Barry was involved, and Barry's daughter, Amanda, was involved. So it was just like old family, again, doing all this. Then I got involved with various racing series. I'm not much of a singer, but that was probably the closest I can ever come to knowing what it's like to be in a rock and roll star, because I'd jump in the back of a truck on a Friday and just drive, go do my thing, stay in the hotel, eat, and then come on back home. And it was a blast. Still hooked up with various series, Southern Mud Outlaw, one of the biggest series going. I enjoy running with all them. But it's still the same thing. It's meeting the people. It's all one big family, and everybody plays a part. People that work the track, people that work the concessions. It's a lot of people. It's not one person, and it certainly isn't open up the gates, let's have a race, it's real easy. No, that's not it at all. Probably some of the highlights would be I came up, visited Matt Bonnet one Saturday, sitting there doing nothing. We walk outside at Bull Swamp Fabrication. We're just sitting out there, sitting in the sun, and we're just throwing out ideas, just nothing but throwing out ideas. And I said, let's swing for the fence. Let's just see if Dennis Anderson will come over to Thunder Valley. I've always had the opinion whenever I was working for a promoter or something like that, I'm sure that a lot of times they just think I'm absolutely crazy. So he said, okay, fine. You check it out, see if he's interested. So sure enough, sent the message, and I get a phone call back about 2 days later, and it was Dennis Anderson. Now, I grew up watching Bigfoot, and I saw Dennis Anderson run before he was having anything at all to do with a monster truck. He was at a monster truck show, but he didn't have a monster truck. But anybody with any sense of eyesight at all could tell he was going to do something, because he was incredible. Absolutely. And it ain't changed a bit. Well, he called me. I said, all right, I'm calling for Matt Bonnet, and we're interested in you coming to Thunder Valley. And I can still see in my mind's eye me walking around the front yard talking to him, and I was about to die. And thanks to Matt Bonnet and Dennis Anderson, I got no sleep that following night, because I was just jazzed as can be. Because, again, all of this stems from being a fan. And so Dennis called up Matt. They set everything up, got everything all taken care of, and that was just absolutely one incredible weekend. And there was no different from me announcing to the 7-year-old child who was out there watching their hero. The only difference was I had a microphone in front of my face, because it was the same thing. And nothing's changed. The kids come to the mud races. They like seeing their favorite trucks. They like seeing their favorite drivers. And it's a great experience. And it's the same thing. We certainly invite you on out to any mud race at all. It's something different. You may very well see drag racing. You may see circle track racing, whether it be asphalt or dirt. Mud racing is a little bit different, but it pretty much doesn't matter what kind of venue you go to. It doesn't matter what style of racing you go to. You couldn't be with better people, hands down. Some of the best people I have ever known, call friends, family, whatever, are involved in racing. And I'm extremely appreciative. I'm blessed beyond means. And that's why every race that I announce, and fortunately it's a bunch of them, my ending statement is, God bless y'all. We'll see you at the races.